Hey, happy Friday. It's Coach Tom Ferry. Welcome to Life by Design, your place online to find ideas, inspiration, and how to stay in action. So I've just completed about 3 days of seminars this week, and the conversation, of course, with the first-time tax credit, all this conversation about how do we get buyers off the fence. And what I'm hearing from people repeatedly is, I'm in the middle of a negotiation and the buyers back out, or we get stuck in a negotiation and the buyers back out. So what I thought I'd do is I'd share 3 really simple questions, context specific, around any point of negotiation that will help you get that buyer to access, if you will, what's going on inside their head, get them out of their head and back into action, writing an offer, buying a house. So here's the questions, right? You start with, let's take a context or a situation where they say, will they accept $50,000 less for this offer? Or we want to pay $650 and they're offering it at $700 as an example. So you take that and you say, well, let me ask you a question. If they don't accept your offer at $650, what's the worst case scenario? So if they don't accept what it is you're negotiating, what's the worst case scenario? Get your notepad out and let them start talking through the emotion of it. And oftentimes, of course, they're not going to have, we're not going to get the house. Okay, but maybe you turn to the wife, maybe you turn to the decision maker and you say, but you want this house. So by missing out over that dollar figure, that $50,000, what's the worst case scenario? Let them get to the emotion where, you know what, I'm going to have to go out and continue to shop. I have to keep looking. I'm going to spend nights and weekends. I'm going to spend more time on the internet. I've got to spend more time in my real estate agent's car. I've got to be writing more offers. I've got to feel the rejection of not getting the home that I want. I'm going to feel the pain of falling in love again and not getting it. You've got to help them create the emotion around the worst case scenario of not writing an offer that makes sense. Then I ask, well, let's say we do get it. What's the best case scenario? Well, the best case scenario is, we bought it, we got it at a discount, we felt we got a deal. You know that dialogue. And the reality is, you got to go there for contrast against the worst case scenario, but we both know we want to stack up the worst case scenario much greater than we stack up the best case scenario. You know that. And then the last one is, so let's be honest. We're going to write an offer at $650. Maybe they've already countered us, back at $690, and we're trying to figure out what's that happy ground where the buyer doesn't freak out, the seller says yes, the bank's going to agree, and everything's going to work out from that end. You ask the question, what's the most likely scenario? What's the most likely scenario to make this transaction work? And looking at your buyers and saying, remember, you're not just buying this for today, you're buying this to raise your family or to retire in or whatever their motivation is. So, what's the worst case scenario of this decision? What's the best case scenario? And then what's the most likely scenario? Remember, in negotiations, it's about finding that happy ground where everybody feels good and everybody wins, which means the buyer feels they got a deal and the seller feels like they didn't leave money on the table. You know how that works. So I thought this simple little, call it negotiation strategy, can help you from our last video, whether you're picking up new buyers from open houses, you're generating new buyers. We're all experiencing lots of buyers in the marketplace, but many people are saying to me repeatedly, Tom, it's taking what feels like, days to help them find the house, maybe weeks, maybe months, depending on the buyer, but then it feels like weeks and months of negotiation to finally close the deal. So I hope these 3 questions, remember, context specific, use it for however you want. What's the worst case scenario? What's the best case scenario? What's the most likely scenario? Remember always, as a salesperson, as a person of influence, if you're not attached to the transaction, if you sometimes talk a buyer out of buying a house, that sometimes can be the best thing you do. But when you're stuck in negotiation, use those 3 questions. Remember always, your strategy matters, your passion rules. Have a great weekend.